Right, we have a big group of people coming in today. We're so excited. If you're like me, I've literally been counting down the days for this webinar. I'm so excited to get an opportunity for Monica to talk about Google Workspace for education, to kind of chat with Josh. Just so excited about this topic, excited about the speaker, excited you're all here. We're just so glad that you're here. So why don't you pop in the chat and just let us know where you're coming in from. I know we have people from all over the country, even some people from all over the world. So pop in the chat where you're from. That chat, we're going to be using it throughout the session. I will be keeping an eye on it for the next 30, 45 minutes. With your questions, I will get them to Monica throughout the presentation. Or if we can't fit them in during the presentation, I will bring them to Monica at the end. So if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. I will keep an eye out for them. Also, at the end, we are giving away a $100 Amazon gift card to one person. And to qualify, all we need from you is to complete the survey at the end. So keep an eye out for that if you want to qualify. And I will just pass it on over to Josh to get us started.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Kate. And as always, I love being online with Dr. Burns. She and I have kind of developed a fun little partnership here that we get to do these types of things occasionally. And I absolutely love seeing that people are coming into this, the chat from all over. This is amazing. So this is really good. I'm thrilled to death to be doing this. In case we have not met, my name is Josh, and I lead all of our educational programs here at Trafera. And listen, we're in for a real treat today. Our topic that we're going to talk about is about how Google Workspace is impacting teaching and learning. And I know that a lot of you all are probably here from following Dr. Burns and her leadership in EdTech. And so just because of that, I wanted to take just a quick second here. I don't want to do a whole lot of this, but I just want to take a few seconds here and tell you about who Trafera is, because if you're here from Monica's audience, you may not even know what we're about. So just at a real high level, we're an educational technology company. So if you look around your classroom, any of the technology that you see in the classroom is something that we provide. We have about 3,500 customers across the nation in 48 states. And our kind of one of the things that we do exceptionally well is our hardware and warranty support. So that means that we have like almost 1 million devices that are covered under our warranty programs right now. And this is my favorite part. People love us. We tend to do well with our customers. And so we have really high reviews, and people that buy from us end up continuing to buy from us for a long period of time. Here's my favorite thing, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Burns. We don't measure our success by how many devices we're selling to schools. I think anybody can do that. We measure our success by how those devices are used to transform teaching and learning. And we have a whole staff of educators on staff with us at Trafera who provide professional learning, not just focused on the buttons that you push to make the technology go, but how that technology can really be used to transform the learning experience. And so we take a lot of pride in that. I wanted to take a few minutes to just kind of share a little bit about how we all got to this space together today. And now my favorite part, I get to hand it over to you, Dr. Burns. Listen, we do this occasionally, so I'm getting in the rhythm of this a little bit now. But every time you come in, you bring the absolute fire, and I'm easily inspired anyway. And so I can't wait to see, what you have for us. And if it's okay with you, maybe I'll jump in along the way, and we'll, kind of tag team this a little bit.
You bet. Well, I am just so excited. Thank you so much, Josh, for that introduction. To be here with you all today, I'm just pumped. Like you heard Kate said, I've been counting down the days to chat with you all about Google Workspace, some of my favorite things, definitely a big Trafera connection. And as you can see here on this little intro page, if you will, we even had a chance to chat about this topic on a bonus episode of the podcast. So if you're a podcast person like me, I won't admit to you how many minutes I've listened to a podcast already today, or this week at least. But I love listening into fun conversations. And Josh and I chatted a bit about what we're going to talk talk about today around Google Workspace. So if we haven't met before, you heard my name is Monica Burns. I'm an EdTech and curriculum consultant, a former New York City public school teacher. I'm still based here on the East Coast, and really excited about all the things that we can do with digital tools for teaching and learning when we are intentionally or making really great choices for how we're bringing in that technology into classroom environments. And so today we're going to talk all about Google Workspace. We're going to look at the different types of choices that you have for bringing Google Workspace into the work that you do. And as you saw on that first little slide, kind of getting us started today, we're going to talk about the differences, the use cases, the benefits, and features of each license level within Google Workspace for Education. And so that's going to be our goal today. If you have questions, we'll have time to chat at the end. So feel free to fill up that chat box with any questions or observations or wonderings that you have. So let's talk about these 4 different levels, looking at all 4 and one big list together, and then we are going to break them down so you have a sense of what might stand out to you, what might be front of mind as you are bringing back this information to your colleagues or making decisions for your school and district. So we'll start off by looking at the Google Workspace for Education fundamentals, and then the Google Workspace for Education standard, the teaching and learning upgrade, and Google Workspace for Education Plus. So we're going to unpack all 4 of these together, and of course, share some great resources for you, not only to try out different levels, right? There's some special resources from the folks at Trafera, but also to understand the different use cases and benefits depending on things you might choose to explore this school year or in the upcoming school year. So let's start off first with Google Workspace for Education fundamentals to really set that foundation for what you can get access to completely for free. And then we'll layer on some of the other pieces that may be a standout for you and your goals within your district and school this year. So within Google Workspace for Education fundamentals, which is free for K-12 schools, for higher education institutions, for homeschool or co-ops, you get access to really all of your favorites. And maybe you've got a favorite in the chat. I jump around between what I find myself spending more time in over the course of today. It's about noon here on the East Coast, and I know I've spent time in my drive, in Sheets, in Slides already this morning, and you might find yourself in one of these favorite places a bit more than others. You can let us know in the chat, but in Google Workspace for Education fundamentals, you have access to all of your favorites, and it's COPA and FERPA compliant, so you can feel good about using it within your particular learning environment, right? All of these things are covered. And I already see in the chat there, yeah, at least 2 hours in Sheets already today, right? So there may be some places that you find yourself spending a little bit more time or that you have, right? So within this space, there's just so many great benefits and use cases. You might have students working on collaborative projects inside of Slides where they're each working on a different page together or slide together within a shared deck. You might have students working within a document, giving feedback to one another. So collaborative projects is huge, right? There may be moments where you are doing some quick communication, even jumping into a chat while you're having a Google Meet together. You might have moments where you're checking your Gmail throughout the day, right? So that quick communication is a big piece of it. And of course, you might use this in conjunction with a learning management system that you are in regularly. So many things that we know and love inside of Google Workspace for Education within those fundamentals. Now, Google Workspace for Education standard is the next level to unpack and think about. And if you've already experienced the fundamentals, right, it's everything in fundamentals, and more. And we have, there's great resources to share with you too, so that you can have kind of a breakdown of all of these pieces as you're diving into them with your colleagues. So this is $3 per student for the year, so for the school year. And it gives you everything within fundamentals and extras. So there's additional security built in, and a security center that gives you access to information that can be really helpful for making decisions over the course of the year. There's also additional analytics so that you can get more information about what's happening in all of the spaces that you are inhabiting, right? And everyone in your school and district community are inside of over the course of the day, over the course of the week, over the course of the school year. So definitely things that are standouts here within this space. So as you're making decisions and looking at these different levels and deciding what's best for your school, your district, for your community, you might find that that enhanced security is an area that you've had conversations around with planning meetings. You're looking for the best way to make sure everything is safe and secure. And that might really be the reason that you're here today, right? To understand more about those security features, the security center, what the dashboard looks like. You might also be here today because you're thinking about how to use the space that maybe you're in just at the fundamentals level to gather more actionable information. And that's really where those analytics come in, right? How can you see where people are at, what usage is taking place, right? So that more actionable information is definitely a part of it. So when it comes to that enhanced security, right, that security and analytics tool are all inside of that security dashboard. I'm giving you kind of just a quick demo view of that right there. Yours might look a little bit different if you already have access to this level, or as you integrate and take a look at what's happening in your spaces. So what does that mean when it comes to understanding security? Well, it can be anything from the volume of spam that's coming in, how much external file sharing is taking place. It could even be information on third-party applications or phishing attempts within your domain. So this can be especially useful if you are at an IT or admin level and making some decisions or providing feedback on what might need to happen next to make sure the digital spaces that your students and your faculty are all part of, are all working within over the course of the day to make sure that it is safe and secure, and that you have all the information you need to make great decisions over the course of the year. So that's really what we're thinking about here when talking about that Google Workspace for Education standard. So many pieces in here that make it worthy of consideration if security and analytics is really front of mind today. The next piece that we'll take a look at and unpack together are the teaching and learning upgrade. Now, this is an area that if you are on the call today as a classroom teacher, you might really think about from an instructional perspective. If you're here today joining in at an IT or admin role, you might really think about this as opening up for the people that you support, the colleagues that you support, more options for instruction throughout the school year. So a couple big things that might jump out at you too that definitely jump out for me. First, of course, is that the teaching and learning upgrade has everything inside of fundamentals and that standard piece. So everything we've talked about already, right, would come along with this teaching and learning upgrade. This is $4 per license for the year. And there's some important things that I want to make sure you know about that are inside of this upgrade. So first off is Google Meet. So you can host Google Meets within your domain with those breakout rooms, getting analytics on attendance, doing interactive activities like Q&As and polls. So all of that may be really important if you are in a space where you are supporting a hybrid learning or virtual learning, or want to have options to share and to host meetings from in a space that everyone is already familiar with. Now, one thing that I think is really special is the translation aspect for live presentations. There's also the companion mode. So a lot of things happening here. You can grab those recordings to make it easy to share later. Great for hybrid or asynchronous learning environments. So just so much happening with the Google Meet connection that I truly think is worthy of your consideration. Next are the add-ons. The add-ons here within Teaching and Learning Upgrade let you integrate EdTech tools seamlessly. And I've got a big screenshot or list of here, and I'd be curious, are there any of these that you use every day or that are already part of your workflow, or maybe you've heard of and you haven't used because it was another step or another thing for your students? Well, this is something where you can really learn about all of the different connections to favorite tools, and they'll work right with inside of your Google Classroom. So when might this be useful? Well, if you are asking students to, say, create a artifact of learning that's creative, that you've made a great template for. Maybe you did this with Adobe Express. You can, with this add-on, have it go right alongside with an assignment that you're pushing out in Google Classroom. So if you've been in a classroom situation, and I know I've been there, where you're asking students to take multiple steps in order to create something, access a new tool, share that with you in a place that you're already in, right? So there's a lot of things that might happen, and this can really help streamline that process for you. And I see some love coming through for Sora and Kahoot and Edpuzzle and Pear Deck, right? So Adobe Express for sure, right? So there's lots of connections here as you are looking at ways to make a seamless experience for teaching and learning. So another upgrade you may want to consider that may be front of mind for you, or maybe you've heard of before but haven't tried out just yet, are the originality reports. So this does everything from looking at citations to peer-to-peer comparisons. It can be a really powerful way to facilitate conversations around digital citizenship. So students can use this, teachers can use this to spark those conversations. So it's a great way to make sure that students have the digital citizenship skills they'll need throughout their academic career and beyond. So a really powerful piece built in here. And the last one on the list I wanted to give a shout out to, these are not the only things, but ones I wanted to highlight for you, are the practice sets. These are adaptive, interactive assignments, really powerful ways for students to interact with content, and for teachers to design engaging, differentiated activities for their students. So much inside of the teaching and learning upgrades that is worthy of your consideration, that I think is worth looking at as you are finishing up this school year and moving into the upcoming school year. Now, the last piece I want to unpack and kind of talk a little bit about with you before we dive into some Q&A this afternoon is Google Workspace for Education Plus. So as you might be able to guess already, based on the way that we've been moving through our time together today, this has everything in fundamentals and standard and the teaching and learning upgrade. So what does that mean? Well, it means that everyone has access to all of the great things that we've talked about already. It's $5 per student for the year. And this used to be called G Suite or Enterprise for Education. So if that sounds a little bit familiar to you, definitely a connection here to what you might have experienced in the past. So a couple standout pieces or things to consider within Google Workspace for Education Plus. You can live stream in your domain up to 100,000 viewers. Now, this can come in handy in so many ways, whether you are sharing something that is a live event for folks that are joining in from home in your community, if you are working in a hybrid or virtual model where that's important in terms of capacity to make sure everyone has what they need through this type of live streaming event. So really big There's advanced security options within Google Workspace for Education Plus. You can sync rosters and you can have that higher level of support. So a lot of things here as you are like looking at the different levels that may be really important to you right now, or you might have a feeling are important to you in the future. So I would love to hear from you if there's something that stands out to you already. Maybe for you, the teaching and learning upgrade and those add-ons with creative tools really jumped out for you, like they do for me. Maybe there's something around enhanced security that's front of mind. From a classroom perspective, boosting creativity with add-ons might be front of mind, or to differentiate with practice sets. You might decide that you want to build digital citizenship with originality reports, or if you're joining in from that IT or admin perspective today, you might find that access to the security center, the advanced device management tools, or that faster support is really going to be the big thing that jumps out for you. So I know that the folks at Trafera have some fantastic resources that you will be able to explore that go a little bit deeper into all of these pieces, but would love for you to join in, Josh, for some Q&A around this topic, so we can talk a little bit about what people are curious about, what questions have come in, but also what stands out to you.
I look, we have developed a little pattern here where we've done the podcast together, and this is maybe we talk about this when we're hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about the teaching and learning features that really get me going. And I understand, I think that if I haven't got the exact date on this, but I know that the thing that the level that we sell more than anything else is Education Plus, because financially it's just the one that makes the most sense, because you get the most bang for your buck there. However, I will say the one that I end up talking to teachers about a whole lot is the teaching and learning upgrades, because number one, I had no idea the practice sets is something that we've talked about so much, and how that can, what we've historically done, Monica, is it's either right or wrong. And so if you get a question wrong, you get it wrong, and it's like, okay, the kid ends up shrugging their shoulders and moving on with their day. But with practice sets, it's not only that it's marking questions right and wrong, but it's providing support to any student who may be misunderstanding a concept, and they're getting some specific feedback about how to course correct on that concept, which I think is brilliant. And then I put a note in the chat too about how powerful the closed captioning tools are in Google Meet. It's really fascinating that every learner, you can go in companion mode, and every learner in the room, even if, normally we think about Google Meet as being something that we do for virtual, but when I started to see Google Meet used in companion mode, where every child is sitting physically in the same space, but we're using that kind of functionality to create a back channel chat for students who want to have a communication loop through that learning experience. And then also you have children that are sitting in the room that may not speak English as their primary language. And then he or she can sit right there at their desk and have the teacher speaking in hillbilly English, just like I do, and have it translated into whatever language that they would prefer. So they still hear it in English, but they're able to see the closed captioning in their own language. And that to me feels like a little bit like the George Jetsons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is the world that we dreamed about. And now Google's helping us bring it into focus. And then one other thing, I know we're not talking about this specifically on this webinar, but I have switched to a Chromebook as my daily driver now. And I'm very fortunate that I have access to a Windows computer and a MacBook. But for what I'm doing day in and day out, it's in my book bag. I pick up my Chromebook and go with this thing, because my world is inside Google, and this makes my whole world so much more. And this particular unit is not the same thing that we would hand off to a child. Now you can buy a Chromebook if you want. This thing is a powerhouse. If you want to buy a Chromebook that's incredibly capable and can do all that, has plenty of RAM and can do all the things, that's available. It's not just the, the little $200 device or whatever that you might consider for student use. There are powerhouse versions of Chromebook as well.
there's just so much that you can do
Mhm.
inside of the Chrome, system, right? And making sure everyone has access to what they need in all these spaces in a safe and secure way, right? Might be really top of mind for some of the people who are joining in. But I think you could hear it in my voice. You echoed it for sure. That teaching and learning upgrade, the ability for smooth creative experiences, the practice set piece. I saw a couple of questions come in about originality reports too,
Mhm.
right? There's just so much that from a classroom perspective that is it's just wild, right? What's possible compared to just several years ago, right? Counting
Yep.
back a bit. And I think that the security center, the advanced device management, right, are all pieces that can make someone who's at that IT or admin level just know that they're supporting everyone in a way that feels safe and that logistically, right, is working for all of them. So I don't know if you have anything specific to share about originality reports, but that's something that I see coming up here in the chat in a couple spots.
Mhm. Yeah, Thomas has asked a really good question. And so originality report sometimes gets compared to Turnitin. And so in a sense, they are trying to get at the same kind of thing, but they're very different. So obviously we would expect originality report that Google, with all the search capabilities that they have, they'll be able to go out and onto the internet, find similar text and flag those passages so that the student is reminded, by the way, before they turn in the assignment, then not necessarily after. They can see those flagged passages before they submit the assignment, and it will help them cite that. But the other thing that it does that I think is really powerful is it can compare student to student work. So if you have Mrs.
Mhm.
Smith and I have Mr. Jackson, historically, that would be really hard to catch academic
Yeah.
dishonesty in that scenario because we're turning it into different teachers. So this originality report will compare across our campus. And so Thomas has asked the question, do we have to build out a repository of text that the system is going to check against? And so, Thomas, if you'll email me, I will track down that answer. The short answer for it is, the way I understand it, no. We do need to enable that peer-to-peer checking thing within the admin console, but it's not a situation where we need to build up a repository to check against. It's just flipping some switches inside the admin console. And Trafera has a couple of Google certified trainers on staff, so we'll track that down and get the exact answer to that question of what switch needs to be flipped inside the admin console for that.
Perfect. And let's see here if there's any other specific questions that came up.
She had Patty asking, she had missed the bit about originality reports. So just backing it up 2 steps, could you just give a high level overview of what that tool looks like?
Yeah, Monica, do you want to do that or me?
I can get started, then you can feel free to jump in.
Mhm.
So talking about the originality report, so underneath that teaching and learning upgrade is an option for you to review student work as it comes in, look at the originality or how unique their work is, and it will flag it so that you can take a next step that's right for you and your students. So that might be having a conversation around your observations, right? Talking about citation or paraphrasing, and using it in that digital citizenship lens to really kind of set expectations or reinforce things that you've talked about, or maybe take a different next step, right? Depending on what things have looked like in the past. So yeah, Josh, anything you want to add into that?
Well, not necessarily, but I will say that this is squarely in your wheelhouse, right? This next question from Justine is asking about ChatGPT and originality there. You've been working so hard on this, and I've been following you so closely on Twitter to see the work that you've been doing. Do you want to take a crack at that question as well?
Yeah, so that idea of on the horizon is, I think, the greatest way to pose that question, Justina, because it acknowledges that so much is happening so quickly with AI, from the generative, language learning models, right? That we think about with chatbots and ChatGPT specifically, right? Everything underneath that open AI umbrella and different integrations that are happening there. So the quick answer is that it's evolving, right? From what I'm watching and monitoring kind kind of separate even from our conversation around originality reports, is what types of services are popping up to look at this new type of content that's being generated there. So I would say the quick answer is the on the horizon piece, right, that you mentioned in your question. It's something I know people are thinking deeply about. And so I would keep watching just to see the evolution of all the things happening in the space. I know I'm trying my best to cover it, but I do think it's an important thing to acknowledge instead of ignore, right? That this is something that, students are finding out about, trying out, curious about, right? And might leverage in ways that can spark a really important conversation around digital citizenship.
And I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
I
if
think that,
anyone's
go
noticed
ahead.
that in Google Docs, if you copy paste from Chat GPT, it's formatted in a way that you cannot reformat. So
Mm.
that's one of the tools that Google's introduced to help combat that originality problem with Chat GPT, but more to come with that, like you said, on the horizon.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for maybe us to set out a webinar in the near future for us to talk about this specifically, because it is about a question. There is a small piece of it that's a question about originality, but I think the bigger question is about leverage as far as a teaching tool. And so that might be a good one for a future discussion. And then I just noticed that Kate has popped up our poll, so that means we're ready to close this down. You guys, I've had such a great time. Monica, I always enjoy us learning together. We have a good time, and there's people here from all over, new folks. It's an honor to, share some time with you and learn together, and who knows what's going to be next, Speaking of what's next, I'll see you at ASCD, and if anybody on the chat, if you guys are coming to ASCT, we'll be there. We'll see Dr. Burns there and some other close friends. It's going to be a good time. Where else can we find you?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, so ASCD is next up for me on the calendar. I'll be popping around to some different schools and events over the course of the spring. And then my next big one will be ISTE at the end of June, which I'm pretty sure if we blink, it'll be here already. But I'm excited for ASCD out in Denver in, just about 2 weeks now.
Fun. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you do that poll. That's how you're going to be entered to win our Amazon gift cards. Don't forget that. And is that it, Kate?
That is it.
Thank
you, everybody.
Awesome. Bye, everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Monica, if you want to hang around, maybe we can take us